we going? We're going. All right. Welcome back to the Talking Average Fitness Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Burns. It's 5:30 in the morning where I am. I hope it's not that case where you are. I'm joined as always by my faithful compatriot and 8:30 a.m. Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
Also was up at 5:30. It's just been 3 hours since then. Because that, that dad life,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Doing good.
So
we're hanging in there.
Yep. So I want to hop right to things because Kevin was saying things and then I was like, oh, I heard about blah, blah, blah. So we're talking about CrossFit Games this year. Hopefully we'll talk about a couple different things, but specifically something that came across social media that Kevin saw. And Kevin, for the people who didn't see it, go ahead and recap real quick.
Which one? We were talking about multiple things.
Okay.
So it's just what happens is we get out, we're talking about 7 different things, and Sam goes, mention the thing, and I'm like, so the CrossFit Games Instagram page has posted a few things, some very cringeworthy. Did you see the thing between Roman and Jeff Adler, like the video of them running on Helena, and they were using some like cringy thing about like, I'm the Terminator, you're not the Terminator, you're like Sarah Connors. Did you see that?
No.
It was the weirdest thing. Like whoever was in charge of social media fired instantly. That it was so bad. It was hysterical. It's probably still on Hiller's page because he was just shredding them for it. Anyways, they've posted a couple games events that are not in what order they're going to be, but just that these are 2 events at the games. One of them being Chad, and the other one being a run swim. And that's all that was given, is that you're going to run some distance and then you're going to swim some distance. And the hysterical part that I noticed, a bunch of people noticed, was that the clips of the person running, he was wearing Reebok shoes when the title sponsor is GoRuck, and GoRuck makes their own training shoe. And it's just like, I don't know what it is with CrossFit and title sponsors. First, you pick one that can't hang and can't even make semifinals happen, and they drop off the face of everything. You sign GoRuck, which nothing against GoRuck. Hopefully they're successful in it, but it's like then they make all this gear, and then you post a video clip of a guy running in like fully decked out in Reebok stuff. And yeah, it's just like 2 things there that popped in my head is like, if you had to dig that far back in like the archives of
media archive,
because you don't have a media team. So if you had to dig that far back in there to find a usable clip of someone running, just hop out on the road with like someone with a semi-current iPhone and you'll be okay. And get yourself a new clip. Or if you intentionally filmed something new, if this is a new clip of like, this is a new person running, they just filmed it, last week, whatever it was, and you had them, like, they showed up in Reebok stuff and you were like, yeah, this is fine. Like, I don't know. That's just CrossFit just being CrossFit at this point.
So
you used to get like an interesting comment about that.
Well, so it wasn't that I had a comment, it's that I saw a comment. So Eric Maciel, who worked for CrossFit HQ, on the media team. And if you go back and you watch the old the CrossFit podcast episodes with Savan, he's the guy who's like working the camera, is Eric Maciel. I saw a comment where Eric said, GoRuck isn't the title sponsor. There is no title sponsor for the 2024 CrossFit Games. And he's like, think of it. Last year, it was the 2023 Noble CrossFit Games. In 2020 or 2018, it was the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games. If you go to the website, there's no branding that says Go Ruck CrossFit Games. Go Ruck is a sponsor, but they are not the sponsor. It's like you go to the page, Go Ruck, Rogue, and a couple other brands, specifically
Bear
the U.S. Border
Complex.
Patrol, Momentous. They're listed as proud partners, but there is no title sponsor this year, which I think is.
So was it then that GoRuck was the official like outfit's not the word, but I'm going to use it. The official like uniform
provider.
Okay, there we go for the games. Okay,
Yeah.
so I knew that they were something. They weren't just like, hey, we're just over here in the corner. I know that when they came in, there was something about them being an official something or other. And so
Yeah.
I guess like because Noble had had been removed, I just assumed that GoRuck was the new title sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So his comment, no title sponsor this year would have been included in all of their branding, similar to Reebok CF Games or Noble CF Games. There would have been some press release as well, unless it actually happened and everyone missed it. This year, it's just the CrossFit Games. GoRuck was named the official apparel and footwear provider. Probably would have been nice to showcase the GoRuck shoes. Probably obligated. Probably not. And then to your question, like I think it's very possible that whoever they filmed or
That was a
whoever they
clip from
got
like a while ago.
it's archival footage.
Yeah.
You don't have to send someone out with someone else and shoot something. It's like, well, we've got a bevy of footage. Someone go find some running stuff and then some swimming stuff and cut it together. But I also think it's interesting, like they don't have a title sponsor.
Yeah, that is interesting. It makes you kind of wonder like what that means financially for the games. Like it's probably more money coming out of CrossFit's pocket as opposed to like sponsors being able to put that on.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you read between the lines on a bunch of different things, like I would wager, well, so first of all, like a little bit of history, Reebok was the title sponsor for the CrossFit Games for 10 years in 2010 to 2020, right?
what a time to be alive.
Oh, I know it.
What a time to be alive, man. Reebok was the title sponsor for the games. Ham Plan was in full force. I don't know. You and I
Rich
both were
Froning was
just
still competing as an individual.
Rich was still just being I mean, he's not a absurdly fit dude, but
Oh, he's still absurdly fit, but
oh yeah. Um, but yeah, yeah, man, we were both at a like just living in a CrossFit gym, just doing dumb stuff with other dumb fit people.
I know it.
We would just be in the gym and they'd be like, "Hey Frank, hey Sam, who do you think can row 100 meters faster? Let's find out."
Fuck. Right?
Yeah, and just one of us so like I just strap in, just yank on that sucker, see what we got.
Cold bore, no warm up. Well, so I mean, when you go back and you look at I mean, there were 3 CrossFit Games before Reebok became the title sponsor.
Yeah.
Reebok lost the sponsorship. 2021, it picked up with Noble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Noble was 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
And then now we've got 2024 is the first CrossFit Games, certainly in modern history, and in over a decade, that there's no title sponsor.
Yeah, they're going to go back to, instead of giving out checks, they're just going to go back to giving out Panda Express gift cards.
Yeah.
Under Armour gift cards.
They've also divested in terms of the responsibilities of the sponsor. So like GoRuck is not required to put together packages for the masters and the teens. There's a separate apparel sponsor for masters, teens, and adaptive divisions.
Well, but those are their own competition though this year, right? It's not the games.
But and then there's that. They divested the master teams and adaptives off the table anyway. So like all of this is indicative of cost cutting and trying to do the most with not the most.
I'm wondering if eventually, because you think about like what used to be like the CrossFit Games, regardless of title sponsor, like the
Hmm.
CrossFit Games was the culmination of the season
Hmm.
for all divisions, categories, like individual teams, teens, masters, adaptive. Everything was the CrossFit Games, and it happened in that week.
Yep.
And that week was chaotic, and anyone that is a CrossFit fan was at work with their YouTube live stream just going. Um,
Yep.
and so, like, it was the whole thing. And then you take the age groups, and now that's its own thing. And so, like, the masters are having their own competition, and the teens are having their own competition. That's like
Mhm.
their version of the games. But, like, and it's going to take a while for, I feel like, the sting of, yeah, we have this championship, but it's not the CrossFit Games. Like being able to like be okay with that switch is probably going to take a little bit because it used to be like, I'm going to the CrossFit Games. I'm a CrossFit Games athlete. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it was known, it was respected, it was, all these things. And now they've gone away from that. The teens have their own thing, the adaptive division has their own thing. I saw because Dave has been doing just quick, like couple minute
Interviews.
interviews, yeah, with
Yeah.
like each games athlete. And he was talking to one of the Panchicks, one of the younger Panchik brothers. I don't know if it was Spencer or Saxon, but he was talking to one of them. And did you see this?
I haven't. No.
Okay. And Dave mentioned that he's thought a lot about, and there's a good to fair chance in the near future that they separate the individuals from the teams as well. So the
Really?
individuals Yeah, so the individuals are the CrossFit Games, and then the teams are, they'd honestly probably just have Rich do it because the Mayhem event that they had done for a while, honestly, like
Yeah.
the Mayhem event they had done for a while for the teams, that was like an off-season competition, was run really, really well, and Mayhem has the fucking facilities for it. They've got all the outdoor space and the like whatever to do
Yeah.
like running and swimming. And if you want to talk about someone who's more than capable to program team events, it's
Mhm.
Rich and his Mayhem guys. Um, and so like I think they would do a good job, but I think like Dave was like, yeah, I've thought about it for a while, and like it might be something in the near future that like we see the teams and the individuals, because Saxon's thing was like if you separated them and you had like something like a different competition, you could have people that like, because you have to like commit to your team for semifinals. He was like, you can have people that like want to give it a go individual. They go to individual semifinals, they don't make the games, but then they can make a team with other people to go and do the team thing.
Mhm.
And you
Yep.
kind of like, he was like, that could be fun. And Dave was like, we've thought about that, and we like, moving it to a different part of the like competitive calendar and
Right.
making it its own separate event, whether it's called the CrossFit Games or whether it's the Mayhem Madness, whatever. Um, So like I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, so now we've taken this thing that and nobody likes change. Let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Nobody
Let's
likes change.
start with that.
But
We-
you're
and
taking
and and we're old. We should also say
yes,
that. Yes.
yes. Um, so nobody likes change, but
Mhm.
you are now taking something that the community held so dearly, whether you were a competitor, not a competitor, an aspiring competitor, your cousin's third friend removed was a competitor.
Yeah.
Everybody in the CrossFit space, shouldn't say everybody, 95% of everyone in the CrossFit community really, really, really loves the games. And
Yeah.
regardless of like, Dave is here, Dave's not here, Dave's here again, Dave's not here, Boz is here, Dave's back, Dave and Boz, like
Yeah.
all the different iterations. We're in California, now we're in uh, Madison, now we're in Texas. Like
Dallas.
those sort of things happen. Um, but everybody is like in support of the games. Everybody that like
Mhm.
wants to go watch the games in person goes to the games, have an amazing time. You
Mhm.
know, like I said, everyone's sitting at work being super productive with their YouTube live stream going.
Yeah.
Everybody's behind the games, and now you've taken this thing that the community loves so much and admires so much, and you've stripped away so much of what made it fun and what made it like truly a culmination of the largest community sport in the world.
Yeah.
You've taken that and you've destroyed it, essentially. You've destroyed what made it special. Um, and given it to, and again, not that these other organizations can't do a good job running the Masters Championships, the team championships, the teams, if it comes to that, the adaptive divisions. Like, not that those people can't do great things, but there is significantly less funding in the way of sponsors and just the size of the company. I mean, we did a podcast episode where we talked about the people like quarterfinals for age groups, individuals, teams, like just doing some rough math. Like CrossFit brought in something in the realm of
Mhm.
$2 to $2.5 million just from quarterfinals, not
Wow.
from the Open, not from semifinals, you know, not from sponsors, not from CrossFit affiliate programming or affiliate fees,
Yeah.
like just from quarterfinals. And so you take a company of that scale that is running these things and the resources and the finances available to them, not that they've always used the resources to the best of their ability, in my
Mhm.
opinion, but they have those resources available to them. And then you look at something like, and this is not to make fun of people, whatever, like Wheel Wad is doing the adaptive games.
Yep.
I don't know if that's what they're calling it, but the adaptive
Yeah,
games.
we'll one.
Um, and it's like absolutely nothing against Wheel Wad, but they are not at the status financially and resource wise as CrossFit.
Yeah.
And the ability to pull sponsors, because here's the thing, like if you're a sponsor, if we're going to be brutally honest for a little bit, if I'm a sponsor and Wheel Wad's like, we want $100,000 to outfit this thing, and I go,
Yeah.
how, like, what's the odds I get my money back? What's the, like, what's the, what's the turnaround, like, or what's the, the eyeballs on it for me? Like, not as many people, nearly as many people are watching the adaptive divisions as the individual divisions. And that's not in any way to say the adaptive athletes aren't amazing, because they
Mhm.
are.
Sure.
It's just more people watch the regular Olympics than the Paralympics.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. And so you're going to get less money in sponsors. You're going to have less ability to make these things happen
Yeah.
and pull certain things off. And
Yeah.
so it's like, as sad as it would be, like if they can't make things financially sustainable for
Mm.
Wheel Wad, like if Wheel Wad can't pull it off, or if they try and pull it off and they pull like a Can East and a Can West where they're like, fuck, we're in the red $100,000. We
Right.
can't pay our athletes, the prize money, and that competition just kind of has to fold. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's that
I
there's so much in it with all the different changes or potential changes as
well,
well.
and you make a series of interesting points, like this thing that the community loves, like and yes, our community loves the CrossFit Games. More broadly, people love competition. And
Yes.
so, the games serve that function for our community. And so great, as CrossFit grew in popularity, like it was easy in 2010, 2012 to have, I say easy, like I'm talking on the global billion-dollar sense of the
Yeah.
word easy. It
Yeah.
was easy to have Reebok do that because the ROI for Reebok was so huge. You know,
Yeah.
Reebok
Because they
for
got in there first.
absolutely.
Like
And
it
one
was easier for them because they were in there first. It's like who else was making functional fitness stuff at the time? Nobody.
yeah,
Like you had like you get some of like the thinner souled innovate trail runners or you had the
Yeah.
Reebok Nano.
Yeah.
And Innovate was like, we're not trying to do functional fitness stuff like you dinguses are just wearing our shoes in the Vibram Five Fingers, you weirdos.
Yeah.
And so, or Chuck Taylor's back in the earlies.
Yeah.
Um, and so then Reebok comes in and goes, hey, we're gonna make our whole brand, not our whole brand, but like we're gonna make our
Big
whole
chunk
brand
of that brand.
about this, and we're
Yeah.
gonna do this and this only, and we're about it, and we're gonna have a whole Reebok gym, and we're gonna staff it with a bunch of dinguses, and you know,
I know.
it like they went full into CrossFit mode for that whole decade.
Well, and they had to. Like, I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember Reebok in
they had
the
to.
like they were
Yes,
dying.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Adidas was about to offload them, like just
yeah,
get the fuck out of here.
yeah.
Yeah, no, they
So
had to, and
well, so going back to so logistically, it was easier. Like the community was a certain size, there was a certain type of person that did CrossFit, facilitating an operation where whatever it was at the time, 40 men and 40 women or whatever went to the games and you outfitted them with 5 days worth of stuff, right? It was easier to do that because it was a certain size. Well, then they were really good at it and it was really attractive and really popular and shit was blowing up on YouTube. And this is what happens. Like now we're talking about a problem of scale. We have created an amazing thing. More people want to do it. Yay, more money. But doing a bigger thing as well, it's not a one-to-one. You can't be
hard.
like, well,
Yeah,
you have more people buy into it, so you're just gonna like to go from it's one thing if you double in size. It's another thing if you 10x in size, like an order of
yeah,
magnitude. The logistics are like how many people were involved in the back end to send one athlete to the games, right? In terms of like how many people work to create a website, work to put, documents into PDFs so that they could be made into score sheets, work to validate things, work to do athlete control at the games, um, how many people worked to drive trucks to ship rogue equipment out to Carson, like, yeah,
and
like
it just makes me think of like the Dave's book. Have you read Dave's book about the
I
2017 games?
I
You
know about it,
should.
I haven't read it.
You should. It's interesting, but it's like it reminds me of that piece where they're like trying like Dave has an idea for an event and he called Bill up and he goes, Bill, can you make something like this? And Bill goes, well,
Mhm.
let me find out. And then he starts playing with stuff and he's like, well, I can't quite make it this size or I can't make it do this, but I can make something do this. And then Dave goes, well, let me see if I can take what you
Right.
can do and make it into the idea that I had. And they kind of like form this kind of like I'm here, you're here, and they meet in the middle where they're
Yep.
like, Bill has built something new for the games, and Dave is like, we're gonna use this new thing, and then they have to take that new thing that they built. Like when they first did the Zeus rig, he was
Yep.
like, Dave was like, yeah, can you make something that's like 5,000 feet tall, and like I need six of them going down the field at the games so that they can
Yeah.
do Murph. And Bill goes, fuck, okay. And so
Yep.
then they come up with the Zeus rig, which has become a staple at the game since they did Murph the first time in 2015. And so they build the Zeus rig, but of course it's in their big testing warehouse. Take that bitch down, take it apart, put it on a truck, ship it to California,
Yeah.
and just the
Yeah.
logistics and everything that go with that. Fuck.
Yeah.
And then you gotta take it
Also,
off the truck and put it back together at the games like overnight. Like you have to
right?
it wasn't on the soccer field that the previous day,
Yeah.
and then you wake up the next morning, we're doing Murph. Oh look, there's six like
There's the rig.
100-foot rigs
Rigs.
on the soccer. Yeah, rigs is
Yeah. So now think of the volume of work. And like now we're talking like middle 2010s, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
volume of work, the human beings involved to make something like that happen. And there's a dollar value attached to every single hour that every single human being does something, right?
Oh yeah.
Go from 40 men and 40 women to age groups
Maybe the
multiple
teams first.
masters. Huh? But
They added the
I'm just
teams.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, like,
but
I'm
yeah,
not going in chronological order.
yeah. Okay.
And, like, like, there were early versions, like the Affiliate Cup, and then you had team competition, then you had multiple different age divisions for masters, and then you had 2 age divisions for teams, and then you've got adaptive
Level 3.
athletes, and then, um, for all of these, the volume of work for that original 40 men and 40 women doesn't go away. Like,
Mhm,
you've got this beautiful multiplication of this exponential growth of the
mhm,
community, and more people are like, I want to do that. I want to go try to do this thing. I want to spend my blood, my sweat, and my tears, and I want to make that a goal. And then they do it and they get there, right? Well, to support that, the experience, the appearance. And when I say appearance, like physically making it possible for you to appear there, right?
mhm.
The back end logistics have gone up as well, right? And again, a dollar value attached to every hour that every human is doing something. It's been a hard couple of years for CrossFit
Yeah,
from a financial standpoint. Um,
yeah.
they don't they don't have the brand power that they had in 2016. They don't
Nope.
have the financial power that they had even in 2019. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was harder to get a title sponsor this year, and
Yep,
thus they weren't able to.
yep.
And um, I have heard that some things that are staples for CrossFit people, like seminar staff, for example, it's a known thing that people on seminar staff are head judges, and like they're judging the top tier athletes at the CrossFit Games, and it's and whatever how do I want to say this, um, however much you want to put seminar staff on pedestals, these people are just humans. And
Mhm.
they get fired up when they see Tia Claire Toomey and, Pat Vellner, and like they fangirl too, like everybody does, right? And so it's a
Yep.
big deal for someone who's on staff who already travels the country and has what many would consider a dream job, right? Um, they it's a big deal for them to get tagged and to get invited to go to the games and to judge.
Mhm.
That's not happening as much anymore. And I've
Yeah,
been told internally that like the number of people who are getting invited to go do these things is much smaller, which is placing a greater burden on the people who are going to do these things. And again, it's part of that
yep.
cost cutting. They've cut down on the scope with which they're operating, the logistical back end. They don't need as many human beings, right? And it's not to say
Mhm.
that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
Just
it's a
is.
very different yeah, like this is there's a great book, a book series called The Expanse. Um, and there's a period of time they call the starving years. Like I feel like this is the starving years for CrossFit.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So that was a long tangent off of the go run. He's not wearing go ruck shoes on the run post. Because we had a couple other things we were gonna touch on too. So we had the
Go.
other announced event from like for the
Keep going on
games
this. I got to take
is
care of the kid real quick.
okay.
Yeah, keep
Um,
going.
so the only two events so far that have been announced, again, not in order, but um, just that they are going to be events, is Chad. And Chad was announced as an event. It's an event at the CrossFit Games in support of, and I'm going to screw it up, so I'm not going to try. It's like some charity, some organization that it's supporting. And Chad is going to be one of the events. And in one of his interviews, weekend reviews, some sort of thing that Dave does. He says there's going to be some sort of twist to Chad, and not sure what the twist is going to be. If it's going to be them holding weight in a different manner aside from a ruck or a vest, if they're going to add a movement, if they're going to, I don't know, add a buy-in, buy-out, I don't know, something. But the second event that's going to be at the CrossFit Games is Chad. And when I saw this, I had a couple reactions. First one being, you know, I'm kind of split because when it comes to modalities at the games and the games as a competition, like you need quality tests and you need to be able to test as thoroughly as possible all the different domains, energy systems, implements. You need to try and test the athlete's fitness as much as you can in the 3, 4, 5 days, however long the games is going to be. And for Chad, it checks the box of a longer event, with long being classified as, over 20, over 25 minutes. It's a single modality event. Single modality stuff has to be tested in, not only weightlifting, but also gymnastics and monostructural. This one would fall into weightlifting because you are moving an external load plus your body weight. Welcome back. So when it comes to Chad at the games, the programming purist in me goes, Chad is a good test. Chad is a good workout. It's a good single modality test. Chad as an event, stupid. And I hate it because if you're going to do single modality stuff, when Dave did the marathon row at the games in 2018, like the full marathon, and people were, 2.5, 3 hours on that sucker, phenomenal test. Stupid event, because when you're looking at, okay, we're testing for the world's fittest, and I think you can kind of check both boxes, but you have we're testing the athlete's capacity, and you have, this is also a spectacle, and people are paying money to watch these athletes do this. And so, and even though it's like, okay, they're doing the marathon row, they did it on the first day of the games. It's on Thursday when nobody's there. Like, very few people are there watching. And, even if you started watching the marathon row, you weren't sitting there 3 hours, like eyes glued to Pat Vellner's like little boat thing on the screen, just, oh, Pat's doing a 154 now. Oh, now it's a 153.7. Like,
Right.
you're not doing that. You're like, you'd watch them go, you'd see who exploded themselves. Oh, they're 300 meters back. Someone made a poor life choice. And then you leave because you're like, they're going to be rowing for 3 hours. Now, again, it's a phenomenal test, not a great event to watch. Whereas when they did the cyclocross event, where it was like the obstacle course and like the little route thing, and they had like heats and they're racing, that's more fun to watch because you're actually watching people race as they're going. And there's like, it's an obstacle course on a bike. And like, that's more fun to watch and is also your single modality monostructural test. And it's like, even though the time domains are different between a marathon row and a cyclocross bike, like, the cyclocross was a better event. You could argue that the marathon row may have been a better test, like capacity wise, but it's like you have to marry the two. It has to be a good test, but it also has to be fun to watch. Otherwise, no one's watching, like, when they did in the 2019 games, when they did Mary, which is the 20-minute AMRAP of five handstand push-ups, 10 pistols, 15 pull-ups. Like each athlete was just in their stations. You're just watching Matt Fraser and Noah Olson in the same like 3 square feet just do movements. And it's like, not that Mary isn't a phenomenal test, but make it task priority instead of time priority, because having an AMRAP in competition is stupid, because it punishes the person who wins for being fittest because you did the most work. So make it task priority and do what they've done, like when they did the muscle up clean ladder at the 2018 games, where it's like the pull-up bars were lined up in the thing and the barbell. So like you moved up a station as you were going, because then you can see where people are. You can see the race in progress. When they did in 2017, when they did heavy 17.5 at the games, and they lined up 100 barbells on that floor, 10 lanes of 10 for the thruster. And like, because you're watching a race, it's exciting. If they were to just thruster and double under in the same, 3 square feet, still, even though it's the same test, infinitely less fun to watch. And so when he announced Chad, I was like, okay, so we're just going to watch people do box step ups for an hour. All right, sick. Like, and everyone's butt's going to be broken. Like, cool. Like, great fucking event. Dave, Boss, whoever's fucking responsible. Stupid. And again, it's a good test. It's not that Chad isn't a good workout. It's not that it isn't a good test. It isn't that it's not cool that they're doing it to support an organization or a charity of some kind. I can't remember the name. I know it was announced there was a charity, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But it's like, that's cool, but it's a stupid event because it's not going to be fun to watch for the athletes. Like, I don't know. I feel like there are a million other ways that they could have done a single modality test that's more fun, because at the games you have to test single modality for all 3 modalities. You have to have a single modality weightlifting test, you have to have a single modality gymnastics test, and you have to have a single modality non-structural test. Chad technically, and if this is how it works out, people will lose their minds again. Chad is technically a single modality weightlifting test because it's your body plus external load. It's a 40-pound ruck. I said technically. Don't look at me like that. I said technically.
I actually don't agree with you.
Okay. So I'm saying, just in terms of how you would classify a weighted step up, would be a weightlifting movement. So I'm literally just saying technically.
Okay, so wait. So they're not progressing down the floor. If they're in
I have no idea.
Well, if they're in it, so let's assume, right? If they're in a specific location the entire time, right? They're not transiting, then you're right. It is technically a weightlifting task.
Even if they flip the box, how is it like? How does that change from weightlifting to what? I do
running.
50 step ups. I do 50 step ups. I flip a box. I do 50 more step ups. I flip the box.
Sure.
Flipping the box doesn't change the fact that the weighted step up is a weightlifting movement.
No, hang on. Take running, for example, right? Everyone would agree that running is a monostructural event.
Yes.
Except it's a gymnastics event because it's body weight only. What makes it monostructural is the distance, like the transitioning from one position to another, and the kind of cyclical repetitive nature over time, right?
Sure.
How else do we go from just body weight to, okay, now it's endurance, right?
So I think it's just because, at least in my mind, like the difference between like a gymnastics movement and monostructural movement, regardless of the locomotion, because I can run on a true form and stay right in the same fucking place.
Yep.
So The
But that
difference is like
I'm,
da, 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 da,
I'm
da,
waiting. I'm waiting.
I'm arguing. So
Hmm.
the difference between a monostructural thing like running
Hmm.
and pick a gymnastics movement, pull-ups, is that is that the limiter on one is muscular endurance, where the limiter on the other is like a strength capacity.
Would you say in strength capacity that the
Oh my
limit would
God.
be the limit of the muscle group's ability to endure output?
Sure, but then you can make an argument that everything is monostructural, because if I'm doing touch and go clean and jerks and I have to drop the bar at 15 and you can do 20, then I have less muscle endurance than you do.
Okay,
Doesn't
so
change the fact it's a weightlifting movement.
but I think we're talking, so like obviously there is some overlap between what is a
Yeah,
like a one rep max deadlift, right?
yeah, yeah,
And 30 ring muscle ups for time and a 2K row, right?
yeah. So
So
I'm gonna clarify something else here. I'm not saying that because Chad is like has external load and is a
mhm,
weightlifting movement, I'm not saying the that it's a weightlifting movement expressing the capacity of strength. It's a weightlifting movement expressing the capacity of endurance,
sure,
because you have to do a
sure,
thousand fucking step ups. So,
sure.
but it's still, Chad would be classified as a single modality weightlifting
Yeah.
workout, because it is un movement that is
Eh.
technically weightlifting. And so I was just making the argument just to be funny before Sam decided to get all from a business here. I was making the
I
argument just to be funny that if CrossFit was like, Chad's your single modality weightlifting test, no heavy barbells, like just the reaction on the of people would just be incredible.
set it on fire.
Danny Spiegel might lose her mind. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
God. Tell
Because
me
she's
about
already
it.
complained of it, like, oh, where's all the barbells? It's like, well, you're still testing strength. You had to move a 600-pound yoke. It just wasn't a
Yeah,
snatch, um, which gets everybody all
whatever.
sorts of fired up, because everyone loves to Olympic lift so much instead of like, carry heavy implements. Like, get super friendly with a 200-pound sandbag. Your snatch won't get worse.
Yeah, yeah,
But then when they're like, hey, we're gonna do a sandbag clean as the heavy event of the games, which I thought was fucking amazing. I was like, that was awesome.
yeah,
Um, One, because fuck you and your barbell bias, but
yeah,
also like it was just a cool, like, this is your single modality strength test. You're gonna
yeah,
pick up an increasingly heavy sandbag until you can't.
yeah.
That was cool. Um,
That's pretty cool.
Anyways, um, that's my thoughts on Chad. Is good workout, good test, dumb event. Even if they flip the box down the floor and they flip
Hmm.
it, I don't know, 20 times, if they're like breaking it up in a sets of 50, I don't know, like you flip it 20 times,
Yeah,
like I'm still not interested in watching
yeah,
that. Like you're gonna
yeah,
watch the first set of 50, see who flips the box first. You're gonna turn off the YouTube live stream. You're gonna come back in 40 minutes to see who's on their last set.
yeah.
Like nobody is watching these guys do step ups with whatever horrendous judging standards occur. Um, so when Dave said there's a twist, I'm really hoping his twist is that it's a box step over. One, because it'll make the event faster. Two,
Ooh,
it eliminates the need for hip extension at the top, which is just going to cause a whole bunch of
yeah.
like just judging standard issues. So, um, so we'll see. But that's the
Thousand
second
box
event.
step overs.
Gross. Spinal.
Yeah.
You just
I'm
get
just
you just
like,
get to hang over that thing. Yeah.
this is
Oh
the
yeah.
image that's in my head.
It's a dog taking a poop.
Just dog taking a poop. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't know there was a twist, so here I am learning things.
Dave Dave said in one of his like weekend reviews things that he does
Yeah.
on Instagram that it's Chad, but there'll be a little twist. So I don't know if the little twist is like they're gonna flip the box down the floor as opposed to staying
Mm.
in place, like that. or if it's like we're going to do box step over instead of step up to
Mhm.
avoid massive judging issues, because
Yeah.
that's just a headache that can and should be avoided, which is another reason why Chad is a stupid event, because you're picking a movement that just invites human error when it comes to judging. You
Yeah.
know, they had that in quarterfinals. They had like how many games athletes that didn't make semifinals because they were like lack of hip extension on their video.
I
Um,
know it.
and it's just like it was horrible in quarterfinals. It's gonna be horrible at the games,
Yeah.
because not only are they trying to go faster because now they're
Yeah.
trying to win money, um, but also you're gonna have infinitely more fatigue set in as soon as you get to the 100 mark on those step ups. Like, nobody's keeping their head in line. They're thinking about all their life choices they've made up until this point. um, so I don't know, dumb. Anyways, um, you had something. One last thing to talk about the games. The barbell spin posted something.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah. So it was announced. Let me pull the Instagram. Um, why am I just clicked the link that I sent you. So it was announced by the Barbell Spin that Dave Castro wants the 2027 CrossFit Games to be in Europe, um, which
okay.
is, oh, hey, Blue Jay. Um, I mean, so much of what we've talked about are growing pains in terms of,
Yes.
and I'm trying to confine this discussion to the sport of CrossFit, right? So we're leaving aside the
Hmm.
methodology and everything else, right?
Yep. Yep.
The sport of CrossFit is still a backyard sport, as evidenced
Yes.
by we have inconsistent judging, as evidenced by blah 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 blah, right? And we've
Yes.
talked previously about how if you like you take the IFFF, they want to make CrossFit on par with the Olympics. Let's ignore for a fact the Herculean task that is and just take it at face value. One of the
Sure.
things that happens is every 4 years they go to a different place. And like 20 years or whatever before that start date, there's a big thing and people petition, and it's a big deal to get drawn for the Olympics. And this year
You
it's
have
in
to
Paris,
Olympic
correct me?
trials and huh?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So we talked like, where would you want to go in Europe? And Madrid would be a place,
Yeah. Nailed
Barcelona.
it.
Yeah. Like
I think
places
Madrid
that are,
would probably be better than Barcelona in terms of a location, but I get what you're getting at.
you know, but like someplace in Europe that could accommodate what we're talking about here. Now it's more expensive. Rogue is going to have to do what they do and then put it on a boat too, and then ship that bitch.
They're gonna take they're gonna
Because they
take
ain't
the truck that has the Zeus rig. They're gonna take the Zeus rig. They're gonna put it in a truck. They're gonna take that truck. They're gonna put it on a boat. They're gonna take that boat and put it on a plane, and then,
right
and then off
practically.
they go.
Yeah, and it could be very cool to see, right?
Hmm.
But considering all of the things that we have talked about, like, what's the feasibility of is this him being like, I would like this is my pipe dream. I would like this to happen. You know what I mean? Um, or
So, good.
well,
Continue.
um, and I'm looking at the comments from the post. Um, there was someone who was this. There's, some people being like, European semis felt more global than the game simply because the audience in different countries. First of all, it is, you know,
Hmm.
more global, right? It's like everywhere
It's
except
very
fucking
much.
America. Um,
Yep.
but it would be wild to see that happen. And
Yeah.
I'd love to. Sure, great, yes. I don't know if they can do it right now. And so, like, you wanna do it in 2027,
Yeah.
right? Someone's gotta commit 2 years out, you know? So,
Yep.
like, what does let's call it Madrid. What does Madrid have to see happen at the end of this year's competitive season for them to be like, "All right, sure, we'll continue talking about this."
I think they need, if I am the governor, mayor, person in charge of Madrid, um, and I'm looking at these things like, okay, like what is it going to take for me to host the CrossFit Games? Like, first off, you have to see, okay, how big is the operation going to be? If they're just going to strip away everything but the individuals and it's just the individuals going, that makes it infinitely more feasible than having teams, masters, teams, age groups, adaptive, this, that, the other, everyone and their mom. It's just the individuals going. It's just 40 men, 40 women. Cool. Like they've got facilities for it. They've got stadiums. They've got, like, Madrid is a major city, so they've got the infrastructure to support something
Yep.
as I'm going to say it, as small as the CrossFit Games. Um, so that's not an issue. It's like how, and I think like if they were to move the games to Europe, I think the European crowd
Mhm.
would be all over it because very
Oh,
few of them
yeah.
have been able to attend the games in person because they've got to be
Well,
over in the States for 2 weeks type
we
deal.
can say the international crowd. It's not just the Europeans.
Well, right, yeah.
Like, if you live
But
in
the international
China,
crowd,
it's a fuck ton easier to get to Madrid.
yes. So you have that. Like I think the fans would be all about it, and it would probably be the best attended CrossFit Games. Um, but I think a big thing is like how feasible is the equipment thing. And I know that they've got Rogue Europe, but I think it's just that Columbus ships stuff and they kind of like store it in Europe so that if someone in Europe orders it, it can get there easier. So now that they have like that kind of deal with things, just a warehouse. I think it could be a cool opportunity for Bill and Katie to put another factory over in Europe and like actually make stuff in Europe. And I
Yeah.
know that that goes against the whole American made part of Rogue
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
is a proud cornerstone of what they do. And they're like, everything we make is
Sit
American
down. I'll be
made.
right there in a minute.
Um, and but I think it's a cool opportunity for them to expand where they're like, okay, now we have two factories. One is in Columbus, Ohio. The other one is in, we're going to just keep using Madrid, Spain. And, now it's easier for, okay, if the games in the next 4 years moves over here, because I think eventually if you want CrossFit to grow as a sport and kind of fall in line with a lot of the other mainstream sports that we have, you have to look at the structure, right? So you've got the Olympics happen, and if people were like, all right, we want the CrossFit Games to be on par with the Olympics, right? We're going to take that statement from IF3 and use it.
Sure.
We want the CrossFit Games to be on par with the Olympics. Okay, cool. The Olympics happen every 4 years. That makes it more feasible from like a competition, like moving it around standpoint, because you've got 3.5 years to figure out the logistics and then 6 months to put it all together and make it happen. But then what has to happen is instead of having the CrossFit Games be your main competition every year, you need the NBA, like people going to play basketball in the Olympics obviously don't just play basketball once every 4 years. They play in the NBA. They play in all the different countries have their own equivalent of a professional basketball league, but they play in the NBA every year. And so you have something that is smaller and, you know, happens every year, but isn't, and the individuals have their thing, and the teams have their thing, and the masters have their thing, and they do a thing every year. And then every 4 years, you have your shot at the CrossFit Games, where if you're a competitive team, if you're a competitive individual, if you're a competitive teen, master, adaptive, you have your shot at the CrossFit Games. That's every 4 years, and they put it all back together, where like you have your adaptives, master, like everything is all there at the CrossFit Games, but it's every 4 years. That is a structure that's probably more sustainable, especially if if they're like, hey, I'm going to make stuff up here. We're going to make the individual CrossFit League. And you host competitions quarterly. Again, I'm making things up. You host competitions quarterly. You have 3 to 6 months to train, depending on how many you want to do. And you go do those, and that's how you make your money. That's how you get competition dollars. That's how you get sponsors, all that fun shit. And then, like, as you go through, like, you'd have an Olympic trials at some point, or AKA semifinals. You have like an Olympic trials where you've like, I've been training for 4 years. I've done these competitions. Now I've got to go earn my spot on the Olympic team. Again, I'm trying to draw parallels here. You go to, the qualifying event for the CrossFit Games, and you either make it or you don't. Same as people go to Olympic trials because they've qualified for Olympic trials, and then they don't make it to the Olympics. You're going to the Olympic trials for the 800-meter dash. They've got 3 spots to the Olympics. You come in 4th. So sorry, you came in 4th the Olympic trials. You don't get to go to the Olympics. You have 3.5 more years to train. Try again next time.
Right.
Like, that could be a cool evolution for the sport of CrossFit that would, again, take a lot of financial pressure off of CrossFit, because they're not having to put something on like the Olympic Games every year. The Olympics wouldn't happen if it was every year, because every single country would just lose infinite money, and the athletes would all die. But
Right.
it's like, it makes you like, hey, I'm going to compete in June and December this year, and then I'll do 3 competitions next year, and then I'll do 1 more, and then give myself, a 6-month block to train before the Olympic trials. Again, you're not seeing like the quote unquote Olympic trials, the CrossFit Games trials. You put your best foot forward for the CrossFit Games trials. You either make it or you don't. And the people that make it go to do the CrossFit Games in Madrid in this year. And then 4 years later, you go to trials again, but I think that would also probably, I don't know, maybe you'd see less injury and whatnot, because you're not trying to go like full balls to the wall, like after having a 6-week off season, and you're like, all right, I took my 6 weeks off, and by off was like, I only trained for 2 hours that day. But then now the Open's coming up, so I got to get back on the horse.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's because CrossFit is a never ending sport. I think that's also hard on the athletes, especially with how it's progressed. When people's max clean and jerk was 275, it was infinitely less demanding than now when people are clean and jerking 405. Stupid shit. So I don't know.
Shit.
It is very much.
I look forward to seeing how they attack and address this. I think it will be very, very interesting. My son is in his little blackout tent, and we got a little camera in there. He's poking the camera, and he's like, "Daddy, I know you hear me."
He's like,
I think it will be interesting I would love to see it go to, I'd love to see it go to for the sport. I know, buddy. I'd love to see it go to like a every 4-year model. The problem with that is it's not sustainable for the athletes financially if they don't have that like short turnaround cycle. Like,
that's what I'm saying. You have like quarterly, you have different competitions. Like, you can go do Wadapalooza and go make your money. You can go do Granite Games. You can go do West Coast Classic. You go do like the, whatever.
It would
You go
be
do those like
interesting for
larger
sure.
scale competitions. It would just like those larger scale competitions would have to like get organized in terms of like a calendar, and
Right.
you could do one every quarter or one every
Hubby, give
every
me
6 months,
1 minute.
every six
Please
months
lay
or
down
so.
and I'll come get you, okay?
Um, and so you could do that, and they would just have to get coordinated with their schedules of like when
Yeah.
they are doing their competitions. So it's not like three of them are all happening on the same weekend, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for those guys that are competing, like you get to go, and for those athletes that are like, well, I don't have sponsors, I can't afford to travel that much. Okay, like again, if we want to professionalize the sport and not have it be a backyard sport, that's kind of what's got to happen at some point. Is you have to have the hard conversation of like not everybody can play.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
um, anyways, you got to go do dad stuff.
Yeah, I gotta go do dad stuff. I think it would be interesting to make it happen and just see what comes out of it. Um,
You just give it a go and see
I
what happens.
Yeah, well, and like to a certain extent, I think they gotta do that. Um,
Yeah.
it it'll also be interesting to see like financially what happens in the next 2 years with CrossFit as an organization and hopefully things get a little bit easier. They get a little bit more breathing room, but don't know, man. Don't know.
We'll
Anyway,
find out.
we will find out. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining me this early morning for me and mid morning for you, and
Yeah.
for everyone who listened along at home. I have no idea when we'll do this again, but we're going to try to make it, relatively consistent. That's the goal. Um,
Something like
Kev,
that.
something like that. Kevin, have a great rest of your day, and for everyone who is here, thanks for listening along. We'll see you.
See ya.